Mira had always loved the sound of rain. It reminded her of beginnings, the smell of wet earth, the soft rhythm against glass, the way the world slowed down just enough to listen. That was the night she met Adrian Cole. It wasn't meant to be a story, just a passing moment. Two strangers in a city that never slept. But some moments, the kind that arrive soaked in rain and accident, have a way of becoming everything. He'd spilled his coffee. She'd laughed. And somehow, between apologies and smiles, two lonely people found warmth where there shouldn't have been any. Adrian was a journalist. Charming. Clever. The kind of man whose words could make a crowded room go silent. Mira was an artist. Quiet, observant, always painting emotions she couldn't explain. They didn't fall in love loudly. They slipped into it quietly, like rain slipping into the cracks of a window. The beginning, they met every Friday at that same cafe, a corner table near the window where rain always seemed to follow them. He'd type, she'd sketch, and sometimes they'd just sit in silence, sharing warmth through glances and unspoken things. Adrian admired how Mira saw beauty in stillness. Mira loved how Adrian could turn silence into poetry. When he talked about the world, she listened like it was a song. When she painted, he said her colors spoke louder than his words. They weren't perfect, but they were peaceful. Two tired souls who finally found a rhythm that didn't rush. In those months, Mira painted differently. Her canvases were full of light, blues and golds, and soft white clouds breaking through grey. Her world, for once, felt complete. But sometimes, love is a story written by two people and edited by time. The distance Adrian's world started to expand faster than Mira could hold. He got new assignments, new cities, new deadlines. His calls grew shorter. His voice, thinner. Mira told herself it was temporary. She painted while she waited. She believed in him the way people believe in rain, always coming back. But patience has a heartbeat, and hers had started to ache. One evening while cleaning his desk, she found something small but heavy. A hotel key wrapped in a napkin. The lipstick stain wasn't hers. For a long time, she just stood there, staring at it. The clock ticked too loudly in the background. The air felt heavier. She didn't cry, not yet. Sometimes heartbreak begins in silence, not in screams. When Adrian came home, she asked softly, "Did you miss me?" He smiled without meeting her eyes. "Of course I did." And just like that, she understood how easily a lie can wear a familiar face. The painting that broke. A week later, Mira decided to surprise him at his office. She carried a painting she'd made for him. Two figures under an umbrella, faces hidden, only their shadows touching. When she arrived, his assistant looked startled. "He's not here," she said too quickly. Mira smiled faintly. "That's all right. I'll wait." But then she saw it. His jacket on the coat rack, and next to it, a woman's scarf. Through the half-open door of the meeting room, she saw him. Adrian, laughing softly with another woman. The same lipstick color as the napkin. Their hands brushed. The kind of touch that said, "This isn't the first time." Her world didn't shatter loudly. It cracked quietly, like a brush snapping in half. The painting slipped from her hands. The canvas hit the floor with a dull thud. The umbrella, the one symbol of them, had split right through the middle. Mira didn't go inside. She didn't scream or cry or beg. She simply turned, walked away, and let the silence finish the sentence for her. The days that followed. Her apartment grew colder, even when the lights were on. The paintings changed. The bright blues and golds she once loved became darker, deep indigos, burnt reds, shadows that swallowed sunlight. Her phone lit up with messages from him, but she couldn't bear to read them. Her friends called, but she couldn't bear to answer. It's strange. How absence can take up more space than presence ever did. Sometimes, she sat by the window and watched the rain for hours, listening for a rhythm that didn't ache. Love had turned into a ghost, and she was still haunted by its shadow. The journal one night. After weeks of silence, Mira opened an old journal she hadn't touched in months. On the first page, she wrote, "If you ever break, break beautifully." It was the first time she'd written anything since him, and for the first time, it didn't feel like she was falling apart. It felt like she was starting over. Every day after that, she painted again. Not for him, not for anyone, just for herself. Her new work was different. It wasn't about faces or people or promises. It was about release. Waves crashing, birds flying, rain falling without sadness. Each canvas was a quiet confession of everything she couldn't say and everything she no longer needed to. The return weeks later, she found herself walking into that same cafe. The air still smelled like rain and coffee and nostalgia. Adrian was there, sitting at their old table, typing on his laptop, like time had never moved. He looked up and froze. "Mira," she smiled softly, calm, unshaken. "Hi, Adrian." He stood up, uncertain. "I didn't think you'd—" She lifted her hand gently. "I'm not here to argue or to explain. I'm here to thank you." His brows furrowed. "Thank me for teaching me that waiting is the slowest way to lose yourself." She took a small envelope from her bag and placed it on the table. "This is for you." Inside, he would find her final painting. A single chair in an empty room, a cup of coffee gone cold, and a window streaked with rain. "Goodbye, Adrian." And she walked out, not in anger, not in pain, but in peace. The transformation. Months passed. Mira moved into a small studio by the river. She painted every morning as light poured through tall windows. Her art changed again. It wasn't about heartbreak anymore. It was about freedom. Light breaking through clouds, rivers flowing endlessly, the small joy of becoming whole again. People began to notice. Her work spoke of healing, of quiet resilience. It was as if every painting whispered, "I survived." Her first solo exhibition came a year later. She called it "The Things I Learned from Rain." The gallery was filled with her story. Not through words, but through color. Soft grays, calm blues, streaks of sunlight breaking through darkness. Halfway through the evening, she saw him. Adrian stood in the crowd. Older, thinner, regret in his eyes. Their eyes met across the room. For a moment, time seemed to stop again. He gave a small, hesitant smile. Mira returned it, gentle, kind, distant. In that moment, she realized something. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about finally being free enough not to care. The night I stopped waiting. That night after the exhibition, Mira went home alone. Rain began to fall again. The same rhythm that had witnessed her joy, her heartbreak, her healing. She stood by the window, watching droplets race each other down the glass. It used to sound like love. Then it sounded like pain. Now, it simply sounded like peace. She whispered into the night, softly, like a prayer. I waited for love. Then I waited for pain to leave. And somewhere in between, I found myself. She turned off the light, wrapped her red shawl around her shoulders, and lay down. For the first time in a long time, she slept without dreams, because waiting ends. Not when someone comes back, but when you finally return to yourself.